Any other tools to mitigate chronic stress? Because it is a problem. Yeah, I mean, so many of us are stressed out these days. And also, yeah, so just general tips, but then also I'd be curious to know what role you think social media is playing in all this.
Okay. So I want to just connect this up to what we were saying before about over-medicating mental health issues. So one of the things I would like to role model is that I have been through some serious challenges in my life. And what I learned from the first one that contributed to, helping me through the second one is the resources that I had in me to be able to deal with those things. And a game changer for me was changing my gratitude list from where it was always about external things, family, friends, travel. And it just got a bit boring. So then I started thinking, I'm writing the same thing out pretty much every day. What else could I put on this list? And when I started adding in things like my resilience, my creativity, my vulnerability, my ability to ask for help, it was like, oh, wow, I know that I've got these things now, and I'm repeating this to myself. And when I really need to dredge to the bottom of the barrel to get through, an obstacle, I know that I've got those things. And so for me, knowing that I had the resilience to overcome the things that I had to without resorting to taking medication really helps me to move forward positively and know that I can deal with life. And, if you've got a major mental illness or you can't deal with something that's really difficult in your life, that's absolutely fine. There's a time and place for medication. But that knowledge that you can get yourself through things is really, really important. And so there's a couple of things around that. And again, you know how I said people have really stressful jobs and then go and do high intensity exercise, and I don't really advocate that. This is not something to do when you're already stressed. But if you find a period of time in your life where there's no major stresses going on and you want to try to boost your resilience, then what we do is called stress inoculation. So it's introducing a little bit of stress into your life, but showing your brain that you control the recovery afterwards. So not time-restricted eating like we discussed, like that time window, but proper intermittent fasting where you reduce your calories to 500 a day for women and 600 a day for men, 2 non-consecutive days of the week. That is a form of stress because you're essentially kind of starving yourself on that day, but you always eat normally the next day. So if you wanted to do that for, weight loss, you would actually also be getting brain benefits. I remember when I did it before my wedding for about 3 months, and I had read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse before. And so this monk goes into the material world and looks for a job, and people ask him what he can do. And he says, I can wait, I can pray, and I can fast. And I didn't really understand why fasting was a skill until I did it. And, then I realized that it really, it builds up your resilience, but it also helps you to regulate your emotions because normally if you're hungry, you'll eat, right? But on those fasting days, you can't eat when you're hungry. You have to ride that wave of hunger until it goes away by itself. And that just made me think, okay, well, if I'm sad or angry or afraid, I can also ride that in the same way that I can, deal with hunger. And the other main sort of form of stress inoculation is cold showering or cold plunging, but it must be followed by, the shower becoming warm, or what I do is I run the bath before, so I know it's there, and then I have a cold shower and then I get in the bath. When I was the neuroscientist in residence at the Corinthia Hotel, they have an ice chamber and a sauna, so I got to use that, which was quite fun.
So great. It's I love that you brought this up because there's actually there's good research on this. Well, the concept is like hormesis, right? That you're talking about, whereby you apply a certain acute dose of stress to the body.
Yeah.
And there are many ways to do it: ice, plunging, saunas, fasting, and you become it stimulates these pathways that make you more physically resilient, right? But then there's like a crossover,
Yeah.
a spillover effect that almost functions like a sort of cross adaptation whereby you become more psychologically resilient as well.
You know, I mean, those things they're just so connected. They can't not happen like that, you know.
Yeah.
Another way of inducing hormesis is with ashwagandha.
Tell me about that.
So again, people tend to take it when they're stressed. And what I advise my friends and family is to take it when you're not stressed. So for example, I took it for 2 or 3 months in the lead up to my US book launch, because I knew I was going to be like doing a lot of travel and a lot of, you know, appearances, and that it would be stressful. So, and that was in October. So over the summer, where I wasn't too stressed, I took ashwagandha because...
Every day?
For a couple of months, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most days, you know, I don't always remember every day. But so that induces a sort of a mini stress response, and then your body learns to adapt to that stress. So then I stopped taking it before I started to travel to the US. And, you know, I did end up in tears at one point on those trips, but apart from that, it went quite well.
I love the concept of cultivating like innate strength. I think that's really powerful. I went through a really dark time myself personally when my mom, I don't know how much you know about my background, but my mom was very sick. She had Lewy body dementia. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was really difficult for me and my family. And at the onset of her symptoms, it caught all of us completely off guard because my mom was young for one. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so that in and of itself was upsetting. I had no prior family history of any kind of neurodegenerative condition. And so at first we thought it was like some kind of cosmic joke, you know, like how could my mom develop this? Like her mom was in old age at the time and cognitively totally healthy. And
it's giving me goosebumps.
Yeah. And in tandem with that, I was in between jobs and I was at a real career low. Like I didn't know what I was going to do next. I had this amazing post-college job that kind of ran dry, and I was, you know, there was no logical next step for me. At the same time, I was dealing with this, like the worst thing imaginable happening in my personal life. My mom, the person who I love most in the world, getting sick. And I remember there was I found this company that was making like these intention bracelets. One of my friends started it actually in LA, and the exercise of the company was to think of the mission was they would make these custom intention bracelets. And so you had to think of a word, like what was the word, your intention. And, you know, I'm not a meditator. So like the idea of having a mantra, this was all like a foreign concept to me, you know? But when I remember like at that moment, I was like, okay, well, what's the word? What do I really need right now to manifest in my own life? And more than any other word, the word that stood out to me was the word that would be the mantra that I felt would be most useful for me in that moment, in that time in my life, was trust. You know, and not necessarily trust that I've ever had trust issues with other people, but it was to trust myself. Yeah. That I didn't know how I was going to get through this impending feeling of doom that I was experiencing in my personal life and also with my career, to be honest. But I just knew that if I just trusted myself, you know, that I would have my own back. And that word for a good number of years during that period to me was incredibly powerful and it was like a safety blanket. And it helped pull me through, to be honest.
One of my mantras is I trust myself. And just on that note, because I don't think I really answered this properly, is that, you know, the sort of, you said I'm not a meditator and I'm not really into mantras, but anything that connects the mind and the body. So yoga actually means union. And yoga is not just yoga poses. It's yoga poses, it's breath work, it's meditation, it's gratitude. Also things like journaling and speaking to someone else. So getting, you know, all those worries that you had on your mind, if you had someone that you could really speak to, it would have, you know, helped you to not just have them going round and round in your head. And, you know, some form of exercise that makes you sweat can also release excess cortisol from your system. When we're very stressed, the body leaches itself of magnesium. And the easiest way to know if you're magnesium deficient is if you ever get a twitchy eyelid.
Whoa.
Yeah, or like little micromuscular twitches in your fingers or toes usually. So it's important to supplement with magnesium if you are aware that you're stressed, you know, just like you would take extra protein if you were going to run the marathon or whatever. Yeah, you know, I think what you've just said about, you know, that I could trust myself and back myself really comes back to what I was saying about what it gave me to know that I got through something really difficult without kind of, you know, not without help at all. I mean, obviously I've got like amazing support, but without kind of, you know, medication or...
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.